Welcome to this Blue Bus Learning Bite from the coaches at the Blue Bus. Today, we are continuing our series on conversations that matter, and we're zeroing in on how to lead through change. If you've been hanging out with us for a while, you already know that leading a resilient team isn't just about rolling out some flashy new strategy, right? It's really about the quality of our everyday interactions. It's about remembering that connection has to be personal if we want to actually have influence.
So think about it. How often do we launch a new initiative, and we're just met with folded arms and dead silence? We spend literally months crafting the perfect plan, and crickets. It totally falls flat. Which really begs the question, what happens when we stop viewing change as just this corporate process, a sterile series of memos, updates, and town halls, and start seeing it as a deeply personal psychological journey? If we actually want to guide people gracefully into a new reality, how might we shape our conversations to meet their very human emotional needs first?
And this brings us to the built-in friction of modern corporate life. Author Ashley Goodall hit the nail on the head when he said, "We somehow lost sight of the fact that change and improvement are two different things. It is so easy to fall into the trap of changing just for the sake of changing. We sometimes trick ourselves into thinking that if we just disrupt the status quo, all our operational problems are magically going to disappear. But unconstrained, constant change, the endless restructurings, digital transformations, the revolving door of executives, that acts like a heavy bombardment on the psyche. It's really worth asking ourselves, is this disruption actually necessary, or are we just inadvertently creating more friction than actual value?"
Now, to navigate all that friction, let's look back at a foundational Blue Bus concept. Remember, connection is deeply personal in order to have influence. And at the heart of that genuine connection, people are just looking to feel both seen and heard. Being seen is that external acknowledgement, accepting someone for exactly who they are as a unique individual, completely separate from their job title. But being heard, well, that goes much deeper. That is the internal process of feeling intellectually and emotionally understood. It definitely doesn't mean we have to agree with every single concern raised, but it does mean putting all the cards on the table with genuine goodwill. So how much might our influence grow if we just make sure everyone feels truly seen and heard during times of deep uncertainty?
Okay, so here is the real crux of the issue. Why does change feel so incredibly difficult? Well, it fundamentally disrupts our three daily psychological drivers: certainty, status, and control. Certainty is that warm feeling that the world is predictable and safe. Status is our sense of belonging, knowing exactly where we fit socially within our team. And control, that's our sense of agency over our own work. When a new system gets dropped on us, it usually creates this profound sense of loss across all three of these domains. And get this, neuroscience actually shows us that a threat to our status or control can light up the exact same pain networks in the brain as a physical injury. But we are literally biologically wired to feel losses way more heavily than gains, which instantly triggers anxiety and a massive stress response.
And this biological reality maps perfectly onto an emotional roadmap that we call the J-curve. Basically, everyone processes this psychological loss of certainty, status, and control through four distinct phases. First up is denial. We just cling to the status quo because the new reality completely clashes with our worldview. Second is resistance, where we push back hard to protect our social identity and agency. Third, we hit have a go. This is where we tentatively start testing the waters, experimenting in the new reality, and practicing new skills until we feel safe again. And finally, just the go, where the new reality finally fits comfortably and it's all just second nature. So, as leaders, we might want to ask, are we acting as patient guides here? Are we affording our teams the time and space to actually walk this tricky terrain?
Which brings us to a pretty stark look at where things usually go wrong, the 666 rule. This really exposes the absolute absurdity of how we compress change timelines. Think about it. Senior leaders might take 6 whole months to process a major change through their own J-curve. They debate it, wrestle with it, figure it out. Then middle managers are handed the grand plan and given maybe 6 days to come to grips with it. And the front line? They get 6 minutes in a quick morning huddle before they're expected to execute it flawlessly. I mean, it is a total recipe for instant whiplash. How might we avoid this pitfall just by giving our teams the same grace and processing time that we had?
While we guide people through that timeline, we also might want to rethink motivation. The classic corporate playbook leans heavily on WIFM, what's in it for me? The standard carrot and stick method of extrinsic rewards and punishments. But behavioral science and Blue Bus cultures show us that this almost never creates sticky, long-lasting behavioral change. Instead, what if we start with why? This invites people to find their own intrinsic meaning and purpose in the shift.
By sharing clean, objective information about what's going on in the environment, we create the necessary space for people to actually discover their own personal reasons to embrace a new reality. Because at the end of the day, people change for their own reasons, not ours.
Now, how we approach these crucial conversations depends entirely on our mindset. We can think about this as driving 3 different buses. The red bus, that one relies on commanding and telling. Just do it because I said so, which, surprise, surprise, immediately triggers defense mechanisms and prolonged resistance. Then there's the green bus, which is all about avoiding and evading. This looks like creating a kind of false harmony by dodging uncomfortable truths, which basically just leaves people stuck in the denial phase. But the blue bus, that is about respecting and aligning. It carefully balances real candor with deep curiosity. It acknowledges the hard needs of the business while profoundly valuing the perspectives of the people. So as you prep for your next one-on-one, you might reflect, which bus am I driving right now?
That blue bus mindset naturally shapes how we structure our communication, and it leads to this really fascinating phenomenon called the Pell's effect. Simply put, employees find information way more credible, and their engagement naturally goes up when they hear it directly from their immediate manager. During major upheavals, organizations love to rely solely on massive, impersonal town halls from the big boss. But true influence happens when we communicate through the line. People need to hear unvarnished truths from the direct boss they already know and trust. When that direct manager is seen as having genuine influence and a supportive relationship with the team, everyone's sense of status and control is naturally elevated.
But equipping those direct managers means we have to foster the right conversational environment. A lot of the time, out of a completely genuine desire to protect our teams, we might withhold difficult information or try to cushion the blow with, polished corporate spin. But Blue Bus leaders assume positive intent. This means consciously placing confidence in our people's resilience and their absolute capacity to handle uncertainty. By sharing clean, unpolished facts and even openly admitting what isn't yet known, we actually empower our teams. How might treating people as robust, capable adults actually reduce their anxiety and uncertainty, rather than increase it? All of these interactions basically act as relational currency. Think of it like a trust bucket. Every single conversation, email, and meeting is either a deposit or withdrawal. Deposits happen when we transparently share the why, admit our own mistakes, show a little vulnerability, and actively invite concerns. Withdrawals, on the other hand, happen really quietly. Often we don't even realize it's happening when we withhold information, offer fake certainty about futures we literally can't predict, or awkwardly dance around the elephant in the room. During times of massive uncertainty, this ledger is everything. We might ask ourselves, are our daily conversations actively building up trust or quietly bankrupting it?
And one of the absolute most powerful deposits we can make is simply giving them the button. Affording everyone a real opportunity to contribute to the how of change is a total game changer. While the why and the what of a big strategic shift might be decided way up at the senior level, the crucial how is usually where change falls apart in the real world. If we invite the team to shape how the work actually gets done day to day, we immediately elevate their sense of certainty and control. It taps into this incredibly pragmatic idea that the folks doing the work usually know best. How might slowing down to co-create the change actually speed up its successful long-term adoption?
Co-creating also acts as a super vital, yet often overlooked safety net. Look, large-scale disruption always carries hidden risks. When structures and systems change really fast, organizations can easily develop ethical blind spots or operational flaws that end up hurting customers or the business itself. Our best defense against that? Having the courage to truly listen. When we hear hesitation, friction, or even outright dissent from our teams, what if we viewed it not as defiance or a bad attitude, but as a potential safeguard? Engaging with those dissenting voices might just illuminate an unforeseen risk before it blows up into a real damaging problem.
So, that brings us to our final reflection. We've seen today that the brain inherently processes change as a very real, tangible loss of certainty, status, and control. But when we ride the blue bus, when we give people the time for their own J-curve, when we start with why, and when we communicate with total, unvarnished honesty through their direct leaders, we have the power to completely flip that dynamic. So the next time you sit down with a team member, ask yourself, how might this conversation turn their sense of loss into a profound sense of gain?